What's up, Cerebral football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. Hey, let me start off by saying, guys, I apologize. I had a editing error when I set this up. It was actually supposed to be set up for next Tuesday, but for somehow, some way, guys, I scheduled it for June 1st, which is today, which is why I'm like 30 minutes late to a live stream here. So I do apologize for that. But with that said, I figured I'd come on here for at least like 30 minutes or so since I set it up that way and then didn't realize what happened. And we can at least talk about day one of OTAs, which is it's pretty interesting, man, to see some of the feedback coming back. I mean, these young Georgia guys are starting to show out, man. I mean, right off the bat, we're hearing about dudes breaking sleds. We see the maturity of Jordan Davis. Nakobe Dean's got the green dot of play calling. Man, I know people are definitely not necessarily sold on this defense yet. I mean, I hear the chatter. I hear the noise on Twitter and things like that. But I got to be honest. I know people say, like, you can't depend upon rookies. You can't know the production of rookies. You can't know if they're going to be as they're advertised to be. Man, I just got to say, I think that this particular group of rookies is going to be quite good. Like, I honestly think that the rotation along the defensive line in particular is going to be really, really good this season. And I saw some kind of some tweets and stuff going back and forth on Twitter to where they were talking about whether or not the Philadelphia Eagles could replace some of the production they had last year, which for me, I mean, I don't know, guys. I mean, I can't say that they're going to have a 70-sack season again. But if we're just talking about can the Philadelphia Eagles once again lead the NFL in sacks, I mean, I'm going to say that, yeah, like I think that's very well possible. And I saw people that were kind of going back and forth and saying about like, how do you envision that you're going to replace the sacks of Javon Hargrave? How do you envision that guys like, Brandon Graham, who's now going into like his 13th year or so in the NFL, like how can you depend upon that type of production to be repeated again? My thing is it's by committee. I think it's going to be a by committee approach to the defensive line. I think that they knew this full well going into the season, guys. And I think that's why they created the rotation that they're creating. And I'm going to be honest, man. I think Jalen Carter is going to really, really kick the doors down once the season starts. I think he is going to be an absolute problem for this league. And it's got nothing to do with him breaking a sled. I mean, that's a cool news story. It's kind of fun to watch that and to see like, man, this dude plays with a little physicality apparently. I mean, my man's out here breaking sleds. But I think it goes a little deeper than that. I just think the talent level of that young man is going to be undeniable once he gets on the football field. People are going to have to reckon with how you block him. And then you just kind of add to the mix of the fact that you still got Milton Williams, who I think is one of the more underrated players inside that, that roster, within the roster, I should say. I still think Milton Williams is really, really slept on by people outside of the city. People who maybe don't know our roster as well as we do. People who don't realize that Milton Williams is a really good pass rusher. I'm telling you, they say, how do you replace 11 sacks? It may not be an individual guy. It may not be one guy who gives you 11 sacks. But if you break down the, interior defensive line and you say to yourself, well, you had like 4 sacks out of Milton Williams, right? You had 7 sacks out of Javon Hargrave, right? You had the 11 sacks out of Javon Hargrave. You had the, whatever sack total we got. I can't remember when Ndamukong Suh did. A couple sacks out of Ndamukong Suh. If you take it together and you're just basically saying like, how do you duplicate? How do you create 24 sacks? I think it's by committee from the interior. Yes, do I think that the interior defensive line can give this Philadelphia Eagles pass rush 20 sacks? I do. I do, just because I think they're going to manipulate things in ways that people aren't thinking about. I do think Jalen Carter is going to be pretty impactful. I do think Milton Williams is going to be impactful. I do think that Fletch is still pretty dang good in this league. And look, he's not the same Fletch from 5-6 years ago. He's still a guy that can beat you and get you pressure if you're not careful there. I look at this defensive line, and to me, like the ability to kick guys inside, Moro Jamo, if getting him involved in a rotation, if that works out, that's a young man that has a little presence to him and can give you a little bit of a pass rush. But, even going past that, you go to Contavious Street, you go to, guys like Brandon Graham, who can also kick inside like in a NASCAR package. And I know that this is a player that most of us don't know if he's going to be on the team or not. I mean, there's still a possibility that by the end of this month, this player is not on the team. But if he is on the team, he can kick inside as well, which is Derek Barnett. I think that if you look at it from a rotation standpoint, Like if Derek Barnett was one of our starters, I would probably be really uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. But the fact that that guy's like fourth or fifth in the rotation, I don't know that there are many players as talented as Derek Barnett that are fourth or fifth in a rotation. Like, I think that the overall talent level of this team from top to bottom in that D line group, I think this is a really good team, man. And I saw people that were talking about like Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith really didn't produce that many sacks in college, but he had a crazy win rate. The thing is like you can make that argument with so many college players. That's been the knock on so many college players coming out. That, oh, well, they didn't have these double-digit sack numbers, coming off of that, final season in college. I'm just going to say, man, sometimes there's circumstances to it. There's scheme that prevents guys from doing that. I think we're dealing with a monster on our hand defensively. And I think it's only going to get better, man. I think this is the beginning phase, the beginning pieces to building that monster. And I think it's only going to get better. I think over the next 2-3 years, it's going to get better. I think we're going to have concerns on the outside corner position as we go further on outside of just this season. But I think people are really sleeping on how good this defensive line is in particular. And then there's Nakobe Dean, man. Yeah, you hear the talk, you hear everybody say that he's undersized. Sure, cool. He's undersized for, football play back in the 1990s and the early 2000s when I played and a lot of you guys played. Sure, I mean, that's not your typical linebacker from that era. No doubt about it. The NFL has changed. It's different. So much of what is predicated in run defense now involves that defensive line keeping linemen from climbing the second level and then having these quick reactionary linebackers who can fill in gaps. I think Nakobe Dean is that type of dude. I think it's what he is. I mean, if you go and look at his average depth of tackle from last season, yeah, he wasn't involved in that many plays. He also was tackling dudes behind the line of scrimmage. I'm not going to say that when you add in, like 100 or some run defense plays that statistic's going to hold. I don't necessarily think it'll be behind the line of scrimmage when you average it out over 100 some run defense snaps. But I'm just saying you can see in those little small, tidbits that he played, he's aggressive. He reads it, he shoots it. He goes and makes the play. I think this team is going to be a lot better defensively than some people think. I really do. I think the secondary has a major chip on its shoulder right now. I think they absolutely have a chip on their shoulder. I think that they feel like they're the reason, and I think a lot of us feel that. Let's be real. I think a lot of us feel this, that they're the reason we lost the Super Bowl. I would probably argue it's a little more complex than that, but they're one of the big reasons why we lost it, no doubt about it. I think they got a chip on their shoulder, man. I think that those guys take pride in what they are as players. I think they've heard everybody talking their talk about them. I've never seen a dude be an all-pro player, an AP second team all-pro selection, and be disrespected the way that James Bradbury was disrespected towards the end of last season. It's crazy to me the amount of disrespect that young man has dealt with. Like, I honestly hope when they get on the football field, there's that little, that little voice in the back of the head kicks in just a little bit and is like, oh, you know what? Wasn't this the same dude that sent you the whole Valentine's Day stuff? Wasn't he the one popping off at the mouth and talking all that? I'm really looking forward to that Week 1 New England matchup. I'm really looking forward to that one. I want to see that one with Juju. It's going to be an interesting season for this Philadelphia Eagles team, guys. I honestly think that this is a team that most people aren't going to see coming. Most people are going to sleep on just how good this football team is. And by the time everyone figures out how good this team is, it's going to be too late because it's going to be that stretch of like 6-7 games that follows, like, the Dallas game right before the bye week. And we go into the bye week and we have that consecutive string of games. I think by the time the Eagles step out of that stretch of games and they end up being 5-1 or 4-2 down that stretch, and everyone realizes just how crazy talented and good this team is, it's going to be too late for everybody. It's going to be too late because there's just no way no one's going to step in front of this team in the NFC and stop it. I honestly think that this team is super talented. It is. And I love the fact that there's still people out there questioning them, both in the mainstream media and to the local medias. I love the fact that they're being questioned. I love the fact that people aren't buying in completely. I love that. Like, if you want a team that can't afford to have a Super Bowl hangover, man, let teams disrespect you like that. I mean, it's hard to have that hangover if you have the culture inside your building. You have a front office that's willing to keep laying it on the line to repeat. And then you also have the external motivating circumstances from you're catching it from every angle, people doubting what you are as a unit. I think this defense, I think, is going to be so much better than advertised. I honestly, I think so. Like, the more I go over it, like, yeah, we got questions at safety. I don't know exactly how the rotation is going to work completely, but I do got a feeling that the three guys, no matter how the rotation shakes itself out, it's going to be Blankenship, it's going to be Sidney Jones, and, then to some extent, some degree, it's going to be Terrell Edmonds, who's the veteran of the group there. Like, I got a good feeling those three will be there. There's a very good chance that they may still address that position group. I still think there's a chance they may address the depth at linebacker. But man, I hope that all these teams keep this energy of doubting this organization, because the two better squads in the NFC outside of the Eagles, our rival in Dallas and in San Francisco, man, they've been talking. They've been talking, man. And I hope that Nick can keep this group of guys centered and concentrated and just don't respond. Don't respond. Keep the material. Keep the chalkboard material. Remember when they told us that, they don't keep chalkboard material? What did Javon Hargrave tell the 49ers the minute he walked into the door? The minute he walked into their facilities? In a very kind way, he was telling them that maybe they should shut their mouths because they took everything they said and they used it. They motivated themselves with it. He basically admitted outright, yes, we knew what you guys were saying. We heard it. It motivated us. We wanted to come out there and kick y'all's you know what. Like, I think that this team, like, yeah, I think from top to bottom, man. I mean, yeah, guys, I see some of y'all chiming in about Morrow. Yeah, I think Nick Morrow is going to be pretty good. I do. I think he's a decent ball player. The only issue I have at linebacker is like last year where you had that rotation of a solid core group of three guys. So, where you had your starters in TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, then you had that main reserve backup in Nakobe Dean. I don't know. I don't know whether or not they have that right now. I'm not too sure if they do or don't. It's hard to predict who would be the third guy. I mean, Davion Taylor was the guy at one point in time I think we envisioned doing that, but the fact that he like initially made the 53, but then they like almost immediately cut him and then put him onto the practice squad. The fact that a former third round pick who was cut by the Eagles, who priorly was starting for the Eagles just a year before, went unclaimed and then signed back to the practice squad and not poached. I don't know, guys. I don't know how to feel about that backup spot, having a veteran present or I think the way that they're planning it, what it seems like, there's like really no way of knowing this, guys, until they put something on film to look at. We won't know until camp starts and we get to preseason game. We can kind of see some of Sean Desai's like core concepts, because he's not going to give you everything, but you'll be able to see some of the core concepts of their defense. But I got a gut feeling is that they're probably going to do some weird rotation stuff with the safeties. They'll probably go to like a big nickel type sort to maybe, give the breathers and the breaks that they need at the linebacker spot. But it's going to be interesting, guys, because there's just behind that spot, there's not a lot of experience, man. It's a lot of projection there past that. Let me hear everybody here. What's up, William? How you doing, man? I appreciate you tuning in. I know you were one of the people that was here way too early. My guy, JP. Nah, man, I didn't even realize I had scheduled this. I thought it was scheduled for next Tuesday, and I noticed what was going on. So I was like, let me jump in here real quick. What's up, Lil? He said, North Philly in the building. What's good, man? How you doing? My guy, Dante. What's good, man? How are you, sir? Eagles Uncensored. Gate. What's good, man? Long time. Hope all is well. I'm doing all right, man. I had my niece was sick last week, and that kind of put a constraint on what I could actually do from a video perspective. So it kind of derailed me a little bit last week, but I'm doing pretty good, man. I can't complain, really. Dante said, I don't think I've ever been so excited about an upcoming season, more so than this year. Can't wait to watch the defense. Me too, Dante. Like, I think the defense is going to be way better than everyone thinks. I really do. My guy Goku said, hit that like button. Appreciate you, man. Legal Side Hustle coming in with the fan. What's up, man? How you doing? What's up, Marcus Leslie? How you doing, man? Yeah, I'm going to try to do this more often, guys. Like, this isn't intentional. I'm either going to do like interview series on Tuesdays and Thursdays where I'll interview somebody. Sometimes it'll be community based. It'll be some of you guys that will sit down. I'll do a highly edited video so you guys don't have to worry about anything. I mean, I'll edit it out, make it entertaining. Don't worry. I'm not going to put you live if you're not comfortable being live. But, we'll sit down. We'll do discussions. I'll bring in some people that I know to do discussions from time, and then we'll fill in the gaps by doing some live streams. I need to do more live streams. I admit that I'm not the best at doing live streams. Like, I kind of I check out on them. I don't do them that much if we're not in season. My guy Legal Side said Dean was getting a lot of tackles in the little time he was in. Exactly. He was flowing to the football, right? Like you could see right away that he's got a nose for finding and sniffing out that football. He really does. My guy Sean said Debo called Bradbury trash. Like it's crazy the amount of disrespect, Sean, that James Bradbury was getting. Like it's crazy to think that this young man was voted. He was voted as a second team AP All-Pro player. Like, I mean, that's a big award. That's a big mention. That's like, that's really difficult to come by. Like if you go over the last, like when I did the breakdown, Sean, where I broke down every, all-pro player in the last 5 years, you notice that a guy as talented as Darius Slay wasn't on that list. Like, so it's crazy that a dude who got named to that kind of accolade, man, he took a lot of disrespect at the end of last year. He really did. Marcus said, I'll take a top 5 to 10 defense if they're hit sticking people. What's the point of a number 2 defense nobody's scared of? Sean said, I think this Eagles team is more talented than last year's team. Yeah, I think there could be like an initial pullback early on in the season. There's going to be some, as they call it, startup cost. Sure, I can see that perspective, but I think once these guys get their legs under them, the talent is going to rise. Like this is an incredibly talented football team. I think people are really sleeping on just how good of a pick Jalen Carter is. I think that is going to become evident by the time we hit that bye week. People are going to be going, how did the NFL allow Jalen Carter to reach Philly? That was a huge mistake. We should not have allowed that to happen. Dante said, I love the 49ers energy. We need that energy in the league. Going to be a must watch. Yeah, makes for must watch TV, right? It makes it worth tuning in for. Like, that there's going to be some feelings about it, right? Sorry, guys, just jumping on me real quick. Sean said, don't sleep on Morrow. He's better than people think. I agree, Sean. When I like I said, I always warn people to be careful when we break down certain analytics. But, Barrett Brooks had talked about what he called impact plays. Impact plays being anything that's made within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage to behind the line of scrimmage, anything in that range, right? From 3 yards to negative 99 yards, right? He calls basically impact plays. And obviously he's talking about the linebacking core. So what I always warn people is like when you get a will, someone who's playing towards the weak side. So thinking traditional 43, which you call the will linebacker, right? But in a 34 front, if you want to be a little bit more traditional there, think more so towards your inside backer that's going to be stationed more so towards the weak side of a formation. When you play that role, you're going to have an opportunity to make a heck of a lot more tackles on screens and little dump off passes and those type of things. So it can elevate that number a little bit. But when I actually took Nicholas Morrow's numbers and I compared it to Kaiser White, who Kaiser White was in the top of the league too. I mean, we're talking about 2 basically top 20 guys in that statistic. To be fair, Nicholas Morrow was a little ahead of Kaiser White there. Like, I think we honestly got a pretty good player. One of these guys that I don't think a lot of people are going to realize it until we're a few games in the season and go, man, he was a decent pickup for the Eagles. Please, you give us Hurts versus Dax with no injuries on both teams. Yeah, so the talk can stop. Dante, I hear you, man. I hear you. Christian Ellis, the Eagles like him a lot. Yeah, the only thing I have against Christian Ellis, Sean, and it's not really anything against him. It's just, trying to figure out what he is in terms of like the experience. We know he's a really good special teams player. He made a heck of a play today in OTAs when I heard he picked off a pass from Mariota, but I don't know what he's going to be inside of live game action. That's the tough part because nothing to go off, right? I mean, we just don't really have a lot of to go off of there. Drew said, oh, you're doing a live dope. What's up, coach? I'm doing good, man. How are you? What's up, JP? The 49 Winers lost some good players. Starting right tackle, a couple of D linemen, Jimmy Ward. They still have questions at quarterback. Yeah, they got a major question at quarterback, man. Absolutely. I appreciate you, Marcus. Everybody hit that like button, man. I think this team is capable of winning 12-plus games. I'm with you. Big S-Bird. I'm with you. I think the same thing, man. I think this is going to be a special season, man. I think we're going to roll right back into having that momentum just like we had last year, man. Stoney say, you the man, Gate. Thanks for the constant contact. Hey, man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Sean said, excited to see what Swift, Penny, and Gainwell do. That rotation's interesting, Sean. I actually really like Gainwell, but I also have to be realistic to the fact that they brought in 2 other players. So, clearly they at minimum, they want to push them. And I'm going to take a wild guess that if you really look at it, I would probably guess Swift is going to be the primary, back come the first half of games. And then I think if they get into the situation where they can ice the games away and they need the big running plays, I think that's when you're going to see Penny get involved in the offense in those second half of games when they're trying to, really, really take over a football game on people, I think. Marcus said this defense will be in the realm physicality of the old Jim Johnson schemes. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to, like I said, I think they'll be more aggressive. See, the blitz thing is a little difficult to kind of pinpoint on because anytime you bring 5 men, it's going to be labeled a blitz. So if you're playing a 5-man front, that's going to skew your blitz numbers, to be quite honest. With that said, I mean, it's not really about that. I mean, you can get there with a 4-man front. I don't have a problem with the concept being that, like, hey, it's smarter in today's NFL to get pressure with as few guys as you can, but be really successful at getting that pressure and then dropping as many dudes as you can in the coverage to try to trick things. I'm cool with that. The only problem I had with the scheme we ran last year was I don't think we did enough disguise. I don't think we did enough to mix things up. I don't think we did enough to like try to single guys up on mismatches by moving them around the formation in that 4-man rush. I think there was more we could have done. I think we left a lot of meat on the bone in terms of like disguising things, right? Kind of planning out your pass rush a little bit more. And I know it's hard to criticize it because you're talking about a team that had over 70 sacks. And I mean, they were stupid productive doing that. I mean, there's just, it's really difficult to really critique it and criticize them. But I do feel like there was meat on the bone. I feel like there was more we could have done defensively last year, to be honest, in terms of like how we mixed up our pressure packages. Drew said, yeah, there is potential for a lot of talent walking out the door after these position battles. Yeah, that's the one that scares me in the secondary, Drew, is that if I looked at the secondary, I think the way the Eagles have it shaped up to be right now, and mind you, ain't nothing finalized. I don't think anything's finalized, but obviously your starting 3 are entrenched. It's going to be Darius Slay. It's going to be James Bradbury. It's going to be Avonte Maddox. Past those 3 positions, I would take a wild guess that the Eagles, theoretically, what they would like to see happen here is they would like to see the guy who has actual starting experience in the NFL, who is a young veteran player. I'm using the word young for a reason because he's not like an older vet, but a younger veteran player. They'd like to see Greedy Williams really lock up that main outside corner spot, right? Then you already have a 4th-round draft pick that you just used this season that you traded up to go get and leveraged a third, I think it was a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft to go make this choice. So you can make the argument that really what you did is you spent a 3rd-round pick, honestly, kind of on it, because that's what you gave up to go get them. So I look at that and I say, like, okay, Keely Ringo. So that's 5 guys right there. You're probably looking at your 6 guys, probably going to be a backup. What I would think, they would want is a backup to Avonte Maddox. That's where it gets kind of tough, right? Because now I think you're talking about maybe bouncing Mario Goodrich inside as a nickel. I think Zach McPherson bounces inside as a nickel, and I think he's the guy that I would like to see win that job. Keyword is actually earn it and win it, but I think he's the most gifted athletically out of the names. And then you have last year's Josiah Scott. I think those guys are kind of jockeying for that position for the backup nickel. Now, where I think things could get interesting, and I'm not predicting this will happen, guys. I'm not saying this is going to happen. But what I am saying is this. I'm saying that if Greedy Williams doesn't do what the Eagles want him to do, which is be that veteran presence, be that main backup guy, be the guy that you can trust. If he leaves the door ajar just a little bit, if he leaves it cracked just a little bit, that's where I think things can get incredibly interesting in the secondary. Because then I think you have a crazy battle taking place with a lot of undrafted guys who have a lot of talent. There's some talent in that room. There really is. I mean, between Eli Ricks and Josh Jobe and Mekhi Garner, those 3 dudes got talent. They got size too. All 3 of them are pretty decent size-wise. Like, that's where I think if Greedy Williams doesn't secure it, and I think Greedy Williams is going to have every opportunity to do it, but if he leaves the door ajar, that's where I think it gets interesting. Because I'll be honest with you, I think Kaylee Ringo would have to be really bad not to make this roster, guys. Like, I'll be honest with you, I think even if he's really bad, they'll at least give him 1 year. So Keely Ringo seems like a 4th guy that's going to be locked on the roster. So if you're carrying 6, you're really talking about 2 open spots. You're probably looking at a backup nickel and then 1 more guy on the outside. So yeah, it's definitely weird, man. I'm waiting to see that battle, guys. I think the preseason game is going to have interest because the depth at corner is pretty good. And I think that guys are going to be jockeying to try to get into games earlier so that way they can try to secure a spot on the team. Marcus said that Nicholas Murray was very impressive in his interview. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a very, very intelligent guy. He's a guy who also wore the green dot of play calling himself before. So you got two linebackers. They have the ability, obviously Nakobe Dean's the guy who's going to have the responsibility of the green dot of play calling, but you got two guys back there that can do it. So, I mean, it's, got two very smart, cerebral, if you will, linebackers in this lineup. Sean said, love the size pressure. He got me hyped on what he wants this D to be, more aggressive, physical, the kind of stuff Philly loves. He definitely understood the connection to the fan base. Like, I'm always a little hesitant, Sean, with these things. Like, I want to see it play out. You know what I mean? I want to see what actually happens on film. But I definitely think that he, if you go back and you watch what he did in Chicago, he was more willing to, number one, he played his corners up a little tighter. The scheme's not really that different. But what I saw was, especially like in early down run defense stuff, he was not scared to bring his corners up and have them play inside the run game, which I think is just going to help us be a little bit more successful in general. Especially like, because, Sean, it was frustrating last year when we could not get stops with a 4-man front inside the run game. Like, that was an incredibly frustrating thing to watch happen. Like, it just got to the point of being ridiculous with the Eagles watching that at times. There were we had to go into a 5-man front to stop the run. So a little different perspective there out of the same scheme will be interesting to see kind of play itself out a little bit. Drew said definitely more we could have done defensively. I was watching all 22 film, my bad guys, with Coach JB from Last Chance U with John Salisbury. He was ripping Gannon. It was a tough watch. What game were they breaking down, Drew? I didn't see that. I'll have to try to find it, man. I didn't see that one. Next year's third we gave up. Should be a very late third for an early fourth for Ringo. So not that bad of a trade, really. No, I don't think the value of the trade's bad, Roland. I'm just saying, like, theorizing like what he is. I mean, you really gave up a 3rd-round pick. I get what you're saying. You're talking about a handful of spots, less than 10 spots more than likely. We're giving up. Sean said, Gate, what's the story with Mike Quick pick behind you? Quick was my favorite player growing up. Dude would have been a Hall of Famer if injuries didn't cut his career short. Here, figure out it for you. So, Mike signed this for me when I was like 12, 13 years old. I was pretty young when he signed this picture. One of my first employers I had coming out of high school, I worked for this janitorial supply company. And the guy who owned the janitorial supply company, like him and his dad and all them, like his dad was a center on NC State's basketball team in the 50s. Went on to play for a couple of years with the Knicks professionally. And then his name is Dean Shavlik. Dean was actually a center on NC State's football team, and Mike Quick was one of his really close friends. And, my dad kind of set me up to talk with Mike and stuff. And like, how football players do. I mean, wish you the best of luck on your future in the NFL and stuff like that. And, honestly, like I had a really fortunate, connection through, someone I used to work for that played football with him at NC State and knew him really well. And, those two guys, like, I don't even like, it's funny because Mike would probably know me if I talked to him and I told him who I was, but like, he wouldn't know me if you just said, hey, do you know Gate? Do you know Steve? Do you know, if you said it, he wouldn't know who you were talking about. But Mike and my buddy, like my former boss, Dean, they used to hook me up with free NC State tickets and stuff when they didn't go to the games. Pretty nice perk to have for working for somebody. Any other cool news coming out of OTAs, like the Ellis pick on Mariota? I'm trying not to overhype it, Marcus. I mean, there's definitely some stuff there. Like, people are pretty high on Olamide Zacchaeus. I don't know how you say his name, exactly, guys. Oz. People are pretty high on Oz and what they saw there. I will say I saw one clip on Twitter where they were showing it to where it's encouraging, because I didn't see this a lot, to be honest with you, during the season. But they were showing a clip on Twitter, and what you saw there was actually a designed release to get a free release. You saw them actually stack the receivers, and they were using Greg Ward, and they were running actually Quez Watkins off of a free release with Greg Ward. And there's a nice little design, man, nice little catch too. So, yeah, I mean, there was definitely a couple of clips on Twitter. If you just search Twitter, search Eagles OTAs, there's a couple of interesting things on there. Drew said depth will be interesting. Is there any concern at depth at defensive end? I actually think our depth at defensive end is really good. I think long-term, Drew, like past this season, you could definitely get into some unknowns there. But for this year, currently, I mean, I don't know if Derek Barnett will be on this team in a week or so. Like, tomorrow's the date to where you can let go of players and it automatically becomes a June 1st designated cut. So you're going to save money against the cap by doing that. So I can't say what's going to be the fate of Derek Barnett ultimately, but in saying that, like, we'll see what happens. Like, I like the depth currently. Like, the depth currently is like this. I mean, if you look at it, you got Hassan Reddick, and then backing up Hassan Reddick, you have Nolan Smith. And on the opposite side, you have Josh Sweat, and then you have, backing up Josh Sweat, you have Brandon Graham. And then your third line of rushers there is going to be either Patrick Johnson or Kyron Johnson, backing up that Sam the strong side of the formation. And then if you go back over towards the weak side, which is the weak side in a traditional 34 front guys, when they play like a jack linebacker, the jack linebacker is resembles a traditional, defensive end, to where that Sam linebacker is more of the Hassan Riddicks. He's more of the Von Miller, more of the Khalil Mack type body frames. Okay. To where when you see these teams that run these kind of varied fronts and stuff, think Danielle Hunter, right? Think Josh Sweat with us, right? I mean, you think of those guys, right? Those guys that stood up and played as edge rushers that way. So, I think the depth is pretty good, and Derek Barnett would be the third wave on that opposite side there. So, I mean, I think they got a really good rotation for this season. But past the season, you would imagine that two guys are going to fall off from that other side of the line. I think that's where things get a little interesting. 69ers better bring extra quarterbacks week 13. Lane Johnson is Bosa's biological father. Sunned him, huh? Coach reviewed all 2020, all 22 of Super Bowl. I can email it to you. Yeah. Send it to me, Drew. I agree 100% with your take on the defense being way too bland last year. Gannon didn't take advantage of these monsters with Will Desai. Yeah, I'm hoping, but it's hard to say, man. It's so hard to say. Gay City, thanks for all your hard work with your content. What's the plan at linebacker? I still think that they might be potentially in the market for a veteran. I think they're going to wait to see how these guys do in OTAs, Paul. I think they'll get a feel for where they're at during OTAs with that third linebacker. They need that guy to emerge. And I know OTAs is a hard thing to say, like, hey, can you really feel dependent upon somebody emerging as a third guy, from just OTAs? I don't think you can solidify it like that just based off of OTAs, but you'll know immediately if somebody's in over their head. Like, you'll know, oh, we got a problem behind these two guys. Like, you would know real fast. So the coaching staff that way might know if they have an immediate problem, or they may not know if they have an immediate solution. So we'll see. I think that they may address it still, Paul. I still think that's a potential move that happens. Sean said, Gates, so what are the benefits and hype around Fangio's style of defense? Why do so many defenses use that style? What makes it effective as opposed to other style of defenses? It's an adjustment to the spread offense concepts that we saw break loose on the league following the 2011 season. We started seeing this, kind of acceleration into these spread concepts across the league, Sean. Basically, the premise of it is that if you're looking at it from the back end to the front end, okay, if you're looking at the back end towards the coverage, most of the time they're going to start off in a base quarters coverage. Now, from a quarters coverage, the reason they do this is a blank canvas. From a quarters coverage, you can almost move into any coverage you want, but more specifically, you can move into a whole host of split field coverages, right? So I can give you a quarters coverage look, right? You can look out there and you'll see, okay, two high safeties, two corners. Okay, this is probably either going to be, some form of a cover two or quarters coverage. But I can easily rock my safeties, move my safeties either pre or post snap. And now all of a sudden I'm playing you in cover six, right? Or, cover six, split the field in half. One side of the field, you're playing cover two. The other side of the field, you're playing quarters. You only play quarters towards the strong side, okay, of the offensive formation. So cover eight is just like cover six, but reverse it, right? So you are playing quarters on one side, cover two on the other side, but you play cover toward two this time towards the strong side, and then quarters coverage towards the weak side. It makes it cover eight. Cover seven. Cover seven's got a lot of coverage principles. It's really difficult to explain, and it's different from coach to coach. But the basis of that is split field coverage, quarters coverage on one side, cover three concept on the other. But there's all kinds of coverage principles, such as apexing meaning the way that you kind of pick up and cover a slot area, versus like if they cone the coverage, such as like if they take one of the outside corners and they take another inside guy safety, or whether it be the slot corner or whatever, and they cone them, right? They bracket that player. So there's a lot of coverage principles when it comes to cover 7 and the way they do that. And these are all designed really to limit spread offenses. So that's why they became popularized. Now, I'm not personally, Sean, I'm not the biggest fan of the Fangio style because I think that the Fangio style to me is heavily dependent upon talent. If you do not have enough talent to run the Fangio style, you're the Minnesota Vikings. Right? I mean, the Vikings had a decent pass rush. It wasn't they didn't have guys that couldn't get to the quarterback. Danielle Hunter is a good player, right? They had Zadarius there too. He's a good player, Zadarius Smith. He was a good player. Now he's gone and he left them this offseason. But, they had those two guys. But then after that, they didn't have the right guys in coverage. And if you can't blend your pass rush to your coverage. And we saw it in 2021 with this defense. You're dead. You're a sitting duck in that system. Drew said Mac is 6'4", 250. Reddick is like 6'1", 220-ish, right? He bulked up. They got him listed about 240. Now, would they list him and what the truth is, Drew? That's tough to say, man. You know what I'm saying, Drew? Like, there's definitely a reason for people to question whether or not they're being honest. Like, I catch a lot of these team sites. They're just using the combine measurements in terms of the weight. Like, they had Isaac Seumalo still at like 305 or something. Like, it was something like ridiculous like that for the longest time. But Isaac Seumalo had told us all the way back in like, I want to say it was like during the 2018 offseason when he signed his contract extension that he had ballooned his way up to 320. Then I was, let me shout out 4133 The Pod. They had me recently on their podcast. So if you didn't see me on 4133 The Pod, go Google search after this. Google search 4133 The Pod in Gate City, and I'll probably pop up there for you. But like, he was saying that he actually heard that Isaac Seumalo over the last year or two went from 320 actually upwards to 330. I only heard the 320 part, but he said that he heard it from pretty good sourcing that he had ballooned up to like 330. So, I mean, like you could see right away, like Drew, that sometimes those sites aren't not the most accurate. I used to think they were. I used to think like, oh, if it's a team site, then like they're clearly, you know what I mean? But then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Now the team sites just run from like a, like it's just, marketing department really. My guy Ref said, when you have a bunch of blue chip players, do you need to always try and mix it up? Is there a such thing as being too cute? I think it's in the way that you do it, Reef. So what I was saying is like the problem I had with Gannon was I understood the philosophy and the concept of only rushing 4 and then dropping as many as you could into coverage. Like philosophically, that made sense. What I didn't like is the fact that we never did anything to try to take advantage and mix things up in terms of like trying to get matchups, right? Simply put, Hassan Reddick was your left outside linebacker, right? Your rush and your Sam on-ball linebacker, right? And then you look over there and you have to the right side, the right outside linebacker, or what would be traditionally called the jack linebacker, an on-ball jack linebacker. That was pretty much going to be Josh Sweat. They didn't move guys around, right? They didn't do enough, in my opinion, to utilize the full talent level of these guys. I'm not saying you have to overcommit to blitzing and things like that, but I do think you should be doing a little bit more. Towards the second half of the season, it's easy to overlook it just because of how crazy productive they were over the second half of the season. But I felt like there were durations of time in the first half of the season. They should have been a little bit more creative in what they were doing. Vanny said, hey, Gate City, which rook will make the biggest impact this season? Which rookie? Jalen Carter, in my opinion. I think Jalen Carter is going to have the playing time. And I think Jalen Carter is going, I think he's going to live up to the hype. I think he's absolutely going to live up to the hype. What's up, Mike? How you doing, buddy? I appreciate the super chat, man. He said, Gate City live. Are we in 2022? Hit that like button, y'all. Yeah, this is the first one of 23 outside of the draft, man. I think the last time we did one was, I think it was the draft, man. It was me, you, and Reese and LB. Marcus hit that like button. Appreciate you, man. Sean said, does Devin Allen have any chance to make the 53? Chance to make it. Man, you worded that very difficult, Sean. That's a weasel out of. Smart wording, sir. Very smart wording there. Appreciate that. I appreciate the level of commitment to that question to hold me to it. A chance, yes. Likelihood. Here's the thing. Could Devin Allen be like a really effective kick returner? Sure. But the thing is that the modern NFL and the rules they placed around kick returns, like most of them end up going out of the end zone anyways. So like you don't really get a lot of opportunities to actually return kicks. Now, I think if Devin Allen could actually field punts, Sean, I think his chances to make the roster would go astronomically upwards. So, I mean, I think if he comes into this camp, Sean, and you see him fielding punts and this dude looks electric fielding punts, then I think that likelihood part to what you're asking, man, I think that goes through the roof, man. Absolutely. Mike said, what do you think? Early guess week 1, more snaps at defensive tackle, Carter or Davis? Week 1. I'll say week 1, Mike, specific to week 1. I think it'll be Jordan Davis, but I think the snap counts will be really close. I think they're both going to be between like 24 and 30 snaps is what I think they'll get, somewhere in that area. Probably just depends upon what's going on, pass rush opportunities. I could see if we're in more pass rush opportunities, I could definitely see in that situation, I could see Carter getting more snaps than Davis if there's a lot more pass rush opportunities. But if we're fielding and have to play a lot from the run game, which part of the reason is the opponent, Mike, is the fact that I know that New England is a little bit more heavily predicated upon the run than they are the pass. You might see a little bit more Jordan Davis there, but I think they're going to be pretty close in that snap total. Now, during the course of the season, I do think that Jalen Carter's talent is going to become undeniable, and there's just going to be no way of keeping that guy off the field. Like, you're going to want that guy on the field as many downs as you can get him there. As long as his health holds up, as long as conditioning holds up, they're going to want him out there because I just think that talent, Mike, I think that talent level is just undeniable. I mean, I saw your video of him breaking the sled, man. So, you know, when a young man's out there breaking sleds in his first practice, I think he's strong, Mike. I think that young man's got some strength, right? Like, I can't wait to see that defensive line with Fletch, Jordan Davis, and then, you know, Carter out there, Jalen Carter out there. Just, I mean, that is a lot of strength. That interior line from a 50 front, whew, that is a strong group of players. What's up, Saison? How you doing, man? Sean said, I like to see, I don't know what happened there, man. They messed up, I think. Use Nolan Smith as a weapon, using him. Yeah, that's what I said in my video, Sean, when I was talking about Nolan Smith. I said he's an ultimate weapon, right? And, you know, you heard today that he played pretty much on every single level of competition. Like, he ran with the ones, he ran with the twos, he ran with the threes. I'd like to see them, like you said, mix it up. Like, he's a guy that you can get creative with where you're bringing him from, right? He is good enough to play off ball, start off as off ball, then creep up on the line of scrimmage on you in that A or B gap. And now you're trying to account for a guy like Nolan Smith, a guy like Josh Sweat, and you're also trying to account for Hassan Riddick. That is 3 levels of athleticism. That's a terror. That is a terror when that ball gets snapped. Those 3 guys are unlike most others. Like, that is, yeah, that is pretty. Oh, I see it now, Sean. That's a pretty crazy group. I see it now, Sean. Now that you spelled it out, Eagles, I see it now. I see what happened now. I should have caught on to that. My bad, man. But yeah, I'd like to see Nolan Smith used in multiple ways as well. I do think that Nolan Smith can be a guy that you can bounce all over the place. I think that Nolan Smith is, like I said in my video when I broke him down, I went in there with the thought process of, like, he wasn't a Philadelphia Eagle yet. So my thought process was, I'm going to break this young man down and I'm going to be truthful about what is on his film. And I was certain I was going to find some shortcomings in run defense. I said in the video, I was so confident I was going to find shortcomings in the run defense that, like, I was like, oh, like, I'm definitely, like, you know, like, this is going to happen. I'm going to find them, man. I'm going to find out where they're at. And then I go in, I start looking, Sean, I'm running the film, and this dude's popping off all over the film, man. He's shutting down the run game with ease. He's jumping and reading things. He's doing, you know, like, look, there are limitations here, okay? He's not a 34-inch in the arm reach, 260-pound, you know, Josh Sweat type, play on the opposite end where the run game's coming directly at you type, right? He's more of the read it, see it, defeat the block, go shut it down, and then contain guy, right? He's there to conceal and contain. So, I mean, his responsibility is going to be different from the opposite side there. But with that said, like, he's stronger at the point of attack than most people probably realize if they haven't really watched his film, because once you turn the film on and you see him kind of operate like that, it's hard to not see it again. Like, it's like, wow, like, this dude he is a lot better against run defense in the run defense department than I would have honestly thought. Like, I'll be honest, man. You guys could have won some money off me on that one. You could have bet me before I saw that film, and I would have lost. I would have lost that bet. What's up, Jock Talk? I'm doing good, man. How about you? How are you, sir? What's up, one above all? How you doing? Oof. Jock Talk said, honest question, is Jalen Carter the rebirth of Jerome Brown? That's tough. That's tough. That's a tough one, man, because there's a lot of difficulty around that topic because there's some element of like, remembrance to what Jerome Brown was. Also, I was very young when Jerome Brown played, and you're talking 10, 11-ish. I was pretty young back then. Jerome Brown is he's a really solid and good football player. He was the late Jerome Brown, I should say. With that said, I mean, yeah, I guess you can, like, impact wise, what I said when I broke down Jalen Carter's film was I get Warren Sapp level vibes off of his film. Okay. I think he's that kind of impact player. I think he is that disruptive versus the run. I think that he is that good as a pass rusher. When he wants to turn it on, he is relentless when it comes to that. I think he's that level of player. It's going to be hard as an Eagle fan to separate the Jerome Brown thing, though, man. Like, if there's a bit of like legacy to that's kind of hard to push back. Sean said, who has the best flying 20? That's an excellent question. I really don't know off the top of my head, Sean, in terms of who's on the team. I really don't know as the best flying 20. My gut instinct is it's Quez. My gut instinct is Quez probably has the best flying 20. But you know what, Sean? That'd be an interesting video. I'll look it up and I'll actually make a video on that. Cool, man. Good. On the Eagles. Sorry. My typing like the Cowboys sucks. Oh, it's all good, Sean. It's all good. Don't worry about it, man. Glad to see your content. Hey, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I really do. So, Gate, I can see us running a 33 Cub and a 52 with the defensive players on the roster. 3-3-5, huh? That would be an interesting shakeup. It would be an interesting shakeup, to be honest. Drew said coach. I was a teenager when JB played. He was an absolute beast. Yeah, I remember a lot of it is it's in legacy that I remember, Drew. He passed away. I don't even think I was 10 years old, Drew, when he passed, because it was before the 93 season, I thought. I think it was like 91, 92, right, Drew, that he passed. I was pretty young. I was like 8, 9, 10-ish. So, like, it's hard, man, because so much of that is caught up in the legacy. You know what I mean? So it's really difficult. I'm old. Eagles versus Raiders in Super Bowl. I was in high school. Laugh out loud. Yeah, that was before I was born, Jock Talk. I'm not going to lie. Before I was born, man. Many to say, hey, what's up, Drew? Paul said, hey, I appreciate the super chat, Paul. He said, can Ajamu make the 53? Which undrafted free agent can make this team? Can make it and probably play, as I think you're trying to say here. I really like Moro Ajamu. The way I break down the roster, Paul, is this. Are they going to carry 6 interior defensive linemen like they did for the majority of last season, right? If you go back last season to close things out, how did they have their interior defensive line set up? They had Fletcher Cox and they had Ndamukong Suh. Then they had Jordan Davis, and then they had, what's his name? The big guy, Linval Joseph. And then they had Javon Hargrave, and then they had Milton Williams. So they carried 6 interior defensive linemen last season. Even before they brought in Sue and those guys, they still had Marlon Tuipulotu on the roster. So it's really a matter of, like, are they going to carry 5 or are they going to carry 6? So, I mean, it's one of those questions there. If they carry 6, Paul, that fight for that spot is going to be really good, because the way I see it is you got 4 players that are locked, in my opinion. I think you got Fletch is clearly a lock. Obviously, Jalen Carter's a lock. Obviously, Jordan Davis is a lock. I think Milton Williams is a lock too. I know some people might disagree with that, but I think it's pretty close for him being a lock. I think you would really have to outperform him to knock him off the roster. So those 4 guys to me are a lock. Then it's a matter of, do they carry 5 or do they carry 6? Because if they only carry 5 in the initial, space, then what you have here is you have a fight between, essentially, you got a fight between Moro Jamo, and then you got Contavious Street, NC State guy, and then you got what's his name? Noah Ellis. Christian Ellis's brother, Noah Ellis. You got those 3 guys, I think, are the main candidates to win 1 or 2, depending if they carry 5, they carry 6. Now, if you leave Noah Ellis off the roster, right? If you say he's the least talented of those 3 names, I think the question you have to ask yourself is like, okay, if we carry Contavious Street, we carry Moro Jamo, and then, that's our group of 6. Our group of 6 essentially would be Fletch, Jordan Davis, and then you would have Jalen Carter. Then you would have Milton Williams. You had Contavious Street. You have Moro Jamo. Okay. I think the question you ask yourself is when you have to when you have to actually give a rest to Jordan Davis, how do you handle the rotation at nose tackle? Now, you can say hey, Steve, in 2021, they did do that. Remember, there wasn't a backup nose tackle on the team. They used Javon Hargrave at times. They used Fletch at times. They rotated in that way. I mean, heck, in 2021, they didn't even have a natural nose tackle, period. And then we also use guys off the, the practice squad a little bit. Marvin Wilson could get involved in that conversation. There's some other guys that could potentially get involved there. Tui Pelotu played nose tackle in college. Marlon did. Oh, yeah, I did. I left Marlon off there. So there's 4 guys. My bad, guys. There would be 4 guys vying for that 1 or 2 spots. You got to add Marlon Tui Pelotu in there. My bad. I really forgot about Marlon. But Marlon, since he's been with the Eagles, he's primarily played as a strong side defensive tackle, the position that backs up Fletch. But he's got some experience in college as a nose tackle. So it really comes basically to answer this, man, it comes down to how do you want to handle talent is one thing. Okay, the most talented guys, putting them on the roster, but then it's also okay, what do we do when we need to spell guys? When we need to spell certain dudes? Contavious Street, Moro Jamo, Milton Williams, those guys are all kind of similar. So, it does make you wonder what they would do. I will say though, man, I really liked Moro Jamo's film, Paul, and run defense. He played with a lot of leverage, man. He was really good. Drew said, I meant to say, hey, I got you, man. It's all good, man. We all do it. Show Enough said, that's exactly why I compare Carter to. He's a modern day sap, same skill set. I've seen him knock linemen out the way with a cold shoulder on some of his. Exactly, Show Enough. He is as disruptive as I've ever seen a prospect coming out of college. Unless I would have to go back to the 90s and the early 2000s to probably make some kind of a very complex argument, Show Enough. And even then, I wouldn't trust my eyes as a kid because I didn't know the game the same way I know the game now. So, you know what I mean? To me, definitely out of the last 10 years I've watched film, I have yet to see a dude as disruptive as he is. Is Legatron going to win the punting job? I hope so. That punt burn us, man. Yeah, that punt burn us in the Super Bowl. Sean said Milt Williams is a guy I think takes a big step up. He's gotten better each year. Yeah, I kind of started off talking about him in the beginning of the video, Sean, to where, yeah, I think he is. I think he's the guy that everyone keeps saying about the sack production. Hey, man, that guy's still here. He's still here. He's a really good football player. This is a guy that I think if you just track the progression of the career, look, it took 3 years. It took Javon Hargrave 3 years to really break over and get over 4 sacks himself. He didn't hit double digit until his final year here in Philadelphia. Javon Hargrave didn't. I think Milton Williams is that guy that all of a sudden might pop off with 6 or more sacks this season. One Above All said Marlon T is out of here. I completely forgot him, One Above All, when I was doing that list of guys. He slipped my mind that he was here. I'm a little concerned about where he is from a health standpoint, to be honest, One Above All. He suffered a ton of injuries. Drew said, Coach, do you see how I'm making another move? If so, what position is the most important position to address? I would say that the 3 positions, I could see a move happening following OTAs if they just say, look, we are not where we need to be for a contending football team. The 3 spots would be guard, safety, and linebacker for me. I think those are the 3 spots where they might look at themselves and go, we got talent. It's a year away from being realized, that talent in that room. Linebacker, I think, is a little different. I think linebacker is just purely a depth issue. But yeah, those are the 3 spots I could see them doing something, Drew. Isaiah said, what if Oz beats Covey for the punt return job? Would we need to keep Covey? And if not, what do you think they do with that extra roster spot? It's an interesting take. I don't know what they would do, Isaiah. I'll tell you what I would do. I'll answer it as, if it was my decision to make. I would like to get size protection on the roster. If A.J. Brown goes down for any duration of time, knock on wood, if he goes down for any duration of time, we're in trouble in terms of size protecting the receiving group. We don't really have that guy. We don't. Hazelwood, look, he may not be a natural outside receiver. I think he's very much like the guy he replaced at Arkansas and Treylon Burks. They're very similar in skill set. But I still think he'd give you a little size protection, right? Joseph Ngata, the young man from Clemson, that dude is, when I said in my video, the comparison I gave him is he gives me some Alshon Jeffrey vibes. I'm not saying he's as talented as Alshon, but the physical makeup of the player, it's got some Alshon Jeffrey-esque vibes to it. I would like to carry one of those 2 guys on the roster if you have an open spot like that. The reason I'm hesitant to put him on there now is that if you need Covey as your punt returner, if that, you just don't have that guy to kind of place in there, then I think it makes it harder to kind of carry them. Jock Talk said, we still have 4 empty spots. Who's going to be the spots? I think they're going to wait until after OTAs, Jock Talk, and I think you're going to see some signings. Like I said, guys, I would not be shocked if you don't see potentially a move made at safety. I think the right move has to be available for safety. I don't think they're just going to sign anybody because they have veteran guys in the building. They do have that. Terrell Edmunds is a veteran guy. Terrell Edmunds has a ton of starting experience. He has more starting experience than the guys that we had back there last year, to be fair, at the safety spot. I just don't think he's a natural post safety. Physically gifted like a natural post safety. He's got the physical attributes of one, but the film doesn't quite lend to that. I mean, hopefully, maybe it gets realized here in Philadelphia. You could say hey, man, splitting the field in half between your safety, Steve, sometimes it makes a guy's natural ability and athletic ability come to life. We'll see. I mean, that's the hope, right? That's definitely the hope. Outside of that, like I said, guys, linebacker, I can see guard being added here. I still think that they better figure something out about tackle. Because if Tyler Steen is your right guard, yes, you got your first off the bench as Jack Driscoll, but Jack Driscoll's not a natural left tackle. Andre Dillard's out the door. Tyler Steen could be that guy, but if he's your starting right guard, you got some deep prospect guys. I'm going to cover this topic, guys. We got some dudes who have starting experience. One played in Cincinnati, one played in Cleveland. They're both bigger, longer, lengthier tackles. But I don't know that we have the right name yet. I still think that might be an area too. I didn't talk about that previously, but I'll say that one as well. Guard, I still think you could use a backup left tackle on this football team. I'll say that they could definitely use a linebacker. Right now, I'm not 1,000% sold on that third spot being locked down, the main backup. I definitely think that you could make arguments around safety. I think you can make an argument for needing a safety. I know some people want another impact pass rusher. I mean, if one's available and they're going to be a team-friendly deal, the only hesitation I have with signing a guy like that is I don't want to take away snaps from Nolan Smith. We spent a first-round pick on Nolan Smith. I want to make sure that young man is getting utilized inside the rotation. Milton, Street, and Ajamo can also play defensive end in a 3- and 5-man fronts, right? Yeah, exactly, Sean. I would call those guys 3, 4 eyes, and 5s. That's their natural alignments. To be honest with you, Kentavious Street was an athletic freak here in North Carolina. He was a very, very athletically gifted player here. Believe it or not, early on in his career at NC State, not only did he play edge, not only was an edge rusher, Sean, was pretty much for the duration of his career at NC State, to be fair. But early on at NC State, he played as an overhang. He was an overhang here at NC State. He's a little more athletically gifted than I think a lot of people realize, but I honestly think that Milton, Williams, Kentavious Street, and Maro Jamo, that grouping of dudes, those are some pretty dang good athletes there. Now, the one thing I like about Ajamo is Ajamo gives you the length, the reach to play with leverage that you don't necessarily get from Street and from Milton Williams. Although Milton Williams is really good against the run, it's effort. It's all effort-based with Milton now. What I'll say about Ajamo is you guys, if you've been there, you guys worked sleds before, the whole proper, you're trying to get a guy in a proper 45-degree angle when you hit the sled and you drive it. It's all about getting that proper leverage and that, that proper hands. That's why, people harp about hand size and ability to have the grip strength, arms, long arms that can lock out and move, those type of things, guys. I do think that Ajamu gives you that, but he's just not, he's not like a 310, 315 pound guy. He's a 290, 295-ish guy. Milton Williams' athletic profile, freak. he's a freak athlete. We got a couple of those guys, man. Josh Sweat, I think, is a really freaky athlete for his position group. Milton Williams is a freaky athlete for his position group. We got a few of those dudes that are pretty good. They're pretty freaky athletes. What's up, Green Wingman? How you doing, man? He says, always good to see you. What has been most impressive on the first day of OTAs? I would say that Nolan Smith, the way that they're incorporating Nolan Smith, and I think just the maturity of these young players. I have been impressed with each and every one of these guys that have taken the podium during this offseason so far. I've been really, really and thoroughly impressed with those guys. I think this is a very mature team for being a young team. I really like the mental space that they're in. Jock Talk said, don't forget Brandon Graham sucked before his first few years before he got good. Yeah, someone was asking me about that the other day, Jock Talk, where they were talking about, they asked me, I don't know who it was. I can't remember anymore, but they had asked me whether or not I thought Derek Barnett, and I'm making a video about that, guys, but when I make my videos, it requires a lot of research. So I'm still I got a lot of information that I'm trying to condense down for you guys into a nice little neat kind of opening topic for the video. But someone asked me about that. Could Derek Barnett have that kind of rise? I'll tell you right now what my concern is. It's not talent-wise. It's not a talent issue with Derek Barnett that I concern myself with. If he's going to have a rebound story, I don't know how you get there without there being some sort of injury along the defensive line. Because I just don't know that he's going to be heavily in a rotation. I think the role that he's kind of coming in to fill is the Robert Quinn role. That third outside edge rusher to that right side of the D line. So I don't know what the opportunities will be, Jock. I mean, that's going to be the hard part, right? It's like Brandon Graham kind of had the opportunity. Although Brandon Graham, Jock Talk, I know you remember this. Brandon Graham got the opportunity due to an injury. He was pretty much on his way out. They were going to let him go. And then injury gets suffered. Brandon Graham's got to get launched in, and then he revives his career. Send Cubby to the gulag immediately. What's up, Pedro? Says, love the channel, bro. Keep working. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Green Wingman said, in terms of size protection, would Julio Jones be an option? Oh, yeah. Come on, Green Wingman, of course. I mean, look, the thing when you bring in that caliber of player, and I'll say that Julio Jones is unique in the fact that he's a veteran guy that's running out of his last chances to be on a competitive football team. So this might work in a way that maybe D-Hop doesn't, per se. But with Julio, I will say, anytime you bring in a big name, you worry about the distribution of targets, right? You gotta worry about that a little bit. But size protection, skill set, making it difficult on defenses to game plan for you. Yeah, Green Wingman. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, come on. I would, if they made that signing, I'd be on here celebrating, man. No doubt about it. What up, Gay City? It's been a minute, my brother. What's up, BLSG? Thanks, man. I appreciate that, bud. James, what's up, buddy? Get Buda Baker. Would you trade Barnett for either Isaiah Simmons or Buda Baker? Oh. All right, let's break this down one guy at a time. Let's go Isaiah Simmons first, Jock Talk. Let's talk for him for just 1 second here. So, Isaiah Simmons I like a lot. I do. I like the athlete. What is the game plan for how you're going to utilize him? Because that's been the downfall with Arizona. They had no idea how to align that young man. They didn't know whether to play him as a corner, play him as a safety, play him as a linebacker. They also struggled with Hassan Reddick with this too. But Isaiah Simmons, I'm not saying it wouldn't work here. I'm not saying we don't have the creativity in the building. I'm not saying that he can't be a utility knife for the defense. I'm saying that is a concern, right? You go trade for that type of guy, and you can say, Gabe, what are we giving up? I mean, Derek Barnett's going to be fifth, sixth guy in the rotation at defensive end, barring some kind of unforeseen injury. That would be his role. What are we really giving up? I'm with you. being a third linebacker, you could probably argue is probably a little bit more impactful than being maybe the fit. Well, not really. I would say the fifth or sixth edge rusher probably see more snaps than the third linebacker, but the third linebacker might be more prominent in case of an injury than the fifth or sixth defensive end would. With that said, Budda Baker, yeah, I mean, if you could trade Derek Barnett to get Budda Baker, and you could contracts got to get worked out, guys. I mean, obviously, like, you got to figure out contract structure. I mean, I would assume they would probably trade for someone like that, and you get a Darius Slay effect where they probably sign and extend the deal. So I don't know what that deal would look like, guys. We'd have to see what the value is across the league for safeties, and we have to compare it to comparable players at his age that signed and kind of where the market is today for that position group, all that kind of stuff. Lineman death, is Zeke available? You got to put him at right guard. How about Simmons and Budda Baker? Yeah, we're just getting into that, man. JP said, I love Sweat, Street, and yeah, man, those guys, we got some dudes that can play, man. Hey, tell these outside folks that Ringo, Ricks, and Garner are the future lockdowns. All three of those dudes got really good size. They have really good size. And I'll be honest with you, Mekhi Garner, when I went to go actually study him and I got involved in his testing and looked over his pro day and the combine stuff, and I was really watching his film, I was shocked with the type of athlete I came away with, because the only number I saw at first was the 4.55 40. I was like, oh, that's like, let me see these splits. I was like, I need to see these splits on this guy. Then I saw his splits. A dude that's 6'2", almost 200. Well, he's 210 pounds, 6'2", 210, hitting a 1.5 110 split. Man, that 10 split's faster than Darius Slay. There's a little athletic ability to that guy. Like, he's, Ricks is a lot of instinct. Ricks didn't jump off in terms of like the athletic profile to me in terms of like explosive traits, but he's instinctual. Ricks is a very instinctual football player. He stood out to me. Kaylee Ringo's fast. I don't know if I would say he's the most explosive guy, but he's just outright fast. When we get involved talking about the flying 20, by the way, I do think that Ringo could be in that conversation for having one of the best flying 20s on the football team. He's a fast guy. Drew said, winning college programs can breed a winning culture at the pro level. The Eagles have a bright future ahead. Yeah, I like what they're doing on the back end of the roster, Drew. I think they got really smart about the way they were approaching that. Shonuff said, even Josh Sweat said that the rookies are about their business and seem to be progressing quickly. Definitely excited for this young core of players on defense. They are hungry. I'm with you, Shonuff. I think that this defense, I know, guys, I know I said this a million times in this live stream, but I cannot wait. I cannot wait for some people to eat their words. I'm just going to say it today. There was a Twitter post. I know my guy Mike saw me put, I commented on his because I saw that he was talking to somebody about it. But they were saying, outside of Hassan Reddick, is anyone on the Eagles defensive line any good? Let's just say I bookmarked that tweet. We're going to see. I bookmarked that tweet. Okay. Because the last time I heard from a certain segment of the fan base, they said that Hassan Reddick was only putting up the kind of numbers he was putting up because the talent around him was so good that they couldn't double team him. But now we're hearing that, is it really just Hassan Reddick? Which one is it, guys? That narrative seems to change with them depending on the day. Drew said, I would trade Barnett in a heartbeat for Simmons. Yeah, I think that's kind of the other side to it, which is like, if you're dealing with a fifth or sixth rotational edge rusher and you get a chance to Budda Baker being a starting caliber player, like, you're clearly going to make that. Isaiah Simmons being arguably a starting player in this team, but definitely would be at least a pretty significant role player inside of this football team. I can kind of see where people are like, man, that's a layup. If it's a low value draft pick in Derek Barnett, or even a Derek Barnett and some other kind of way of figuring this out for how they do it. Like, yeah, I could definitely see that, guys. I can absolutely see that. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all so much. We went for about an hour, guys. I'm going to keep doing these. Like I said, guys, Tuesday or Thursdays, we're going to do a live stream, or what we'll do in place of a live stream is I'll have like an interview with community members, maybe some other content creators, but I want to have it encompass everybody. Like members of the community that just want to talk a little bit of football one-on-one. I'll edit it down and make it, a nice, easy, enjoyable, watchable, product. And then we'll roll that way, guys. We're going to do that Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'll stick to a content upload schedule that allows us to kind of upload some actual like insightful videos. It gives me time to do the edits in a certain way. It gives me time to do the research thoroughly for you guys to make better quality videos. So that way we get that kind of, that thing going. And every now and then, I do want to sprinkle in like one weekend video, like, either Saturday or Sunday, put something out there, whether it's a live stream, no matter what it is, you know what I mean? Drew, I appreciate you, bro. You know it, man. Jock, hey, man, thank you so much, guys. I'll answer this real quick, James, before I jump off. Patrick Queen or Devin White in a heartbeat. Either player would be a massive, massive upgrade in terms of the rotation at linebacker. Yeah, absolutely. Show enough, man. Appreciate y'all, guys. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys tomorrow in tomorrow's video, guys. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.